fun project. I'm going to do, you guys have seen me do these bags in the past. This is just a, hi Molly. So I get these bags, these canvas bags at Michael's, and they're not expensive, and I always get them when I have a coupon so I can get like 30% off. So I always have them in stock and on hand, and they're so fun to do, and there's so many fun things you can do with them. And so I still have a few of them. I've made a bunch, but I've gifted these to a lot of people. And so here's one I did, probably 6 months ago, maybe a little longer than that. And this is one of my decoupage tissues. And it's actually this gal in the middle. And then I carried those squares on out. I painted the squares on out for the rest of her. And that was a really fun one to do. And then at Christmas time, I did a whole bunch of these at Christmas time, like with different Christmas scenes on them, and then just filled them with tissue paper and presents. And so then they get a present in a present. And so that's always fun. And I did this piece a couple of months ago. And this isn't a bag, this is a board, but I'm going to do something similar with one of the decoupage tissues, because this tissue paper that she came on, there are 8 designs on that one paper, and we're going to do some fun stuff. So the designs that are on here, we've already used the one I just showed you. She was right there. But you can see there are 4 more designs and ephemera. And so we're going to use all of these designs and some of the ephemera. And then I have this fun stencil, because you guys, if you know me very well, you know I love Harlequins. Lots of people like the squares. I like the Harlequins. And I was going through some of my stash. I thought, ooh, adding some Harlequin to this would be really cool. And I also have a piece of tissue paper that I made off of my jelly plate that has the Harlequin on it, so I may work some of that into it. So you just never know what we're going to end up with here. So I know there it went. So we're going to get started on this, and if you've hung out with me for any length of time, you already know this trick, but if you're new here, this is the best way to divide up or cut your decoupage paper. And so I could take scissors and cut that, but then that's going to give me a straight edge and it looks very unnatural. And so I'm going to so I can easily store this piece, I'm going to just wet my brush in some water. And I'm going to take this wet brush and I'm just going to draw myself a line down here. And it gives you a really organic finish to your piece. Much better looking than if you just use scissors across it. And I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so you can see I cut it here and here, but the corner of this tissue is here and here. And you can see that having that organic line is much more pleasant on your eyes than having that harsh line. So if I was going to use this piece, and I don't know which piece I'm going to use yet, if I use this one, whenever I use this one, I'm going to go back and do the same thing and pull the edges off. So I'm going to go ahead and just so I have some better control over all of this paper blowing around. I have a ceiling fan going above me. I'm just going to go ahead and just condense all of this real quick. You can see how simple and easy this is. I think this is a really pretty pattern, and we'll probably work some of that into our bag. And you can do the front and the back, or just do the front. I did some at Easter time with some really fun Easter designs. Oh, I did a really cool Halloween one. I think that's in my studio. The Halloween one turned out really cool. I'm telling you, these are just fun to do, and you don't have to think real hard to do them. And some days I need not to have to think real hard. Some days I need to give my brain a rest. Now, just so you guys know, the one that I did on this board, this one, I have created an additional design that is a half sheet of her. She's half on one page, and then the newspaper print, I think I have some of it here, and then the other half of the page is this newspaper print. And I have a project in my mind for that, and so that's why I did that. But that one, I have a shipment of decoupage tissue with new ones that you guys haven't seen yet. It's shipped today, so I should have it by the end of the week. But I think on this bag, you know, I did all of these embellishments on here, and I think that I will do some of that on this bag. And I named her Adora Clockwork Angel, and I might stencil that on the bag. So it's just a matter of having ideas, and then and just, especially when you're doing a collage, that's the only way I can do a collage, is just to get general ideas and then let them come to life on their own. So the first thing I'm going to do is pick her out, and I think I'm going to use this one. I don't know. Gosh, it's such a hard decision because they are all so pretty. I might just use this one. And so I need to go back and just pull off these little edges. Even though I can see some of your comments now, I can only see half of them. I can't see the whole comment. I tell you, it's just a love-hate relationship with Facebook all the time. Hi, Callie. Thanks for joining us. Callie does amazing work. If you guys don't follow her, I highly recommend that you click on her link. She does amazing work. Okay, so now I have raggedy edges on her, and I could raggy them up even more. I do want to use some of this newspaper on here. And I'm not sure. This is the part about kind of like figuring out what your plan is. I used some of this newspaper on that fish box too, and that turned out super, super pretty. I think what I'm going to do here is just tear off some sections of it. I'm going to do up here. Oh, so you did resin molds today, Mary? That's cool. What are you working on? Mary's been painting bathroom cabinets, and she's getting very fancy. Okay, so I have this piece, and I have this, and let's see, I have some of this to work with. I love this up here, and I love this, and a little piece of this, and some pieces of this. So do you guys get what we're... Okay, so we're going to put that, and I may just use some of this stencil. If I don't use this tissue paper, I may use the stencil and just add some brownish gold Harlequin here and there. So let's get this big piece out of the way. And okay, so this is the top of the bag here. I'm going to pull this down so you get the whole thing. And I may just put a bit of this in here. I'm not sure I love that. If you don't love it, just take it out. Okay, so I'm going to take my brush, because so far I like this. So I'm going to take my brush So here is about where that's giving me extra room. So I'm going to take a bit of this, and I made a real irregular line. And I can take some of this and put down here. Okay, so we're going to do more with this, but I'm going to stop laying out pieces because I kind of like how this is starting to come together here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put this piece on here. And when I decoupage, I use Dixie Belle Satin Top Coat. And I want to get this as close up there as I can. I can always fold it over, and it's kind of centered. And I didn't mention this, but I need to mention it. Inside here, you guys, is a file folder, and I wrapped the file folder up with a trash bag, just so that none of my medium seeps through to the other side, because I can make the decision to either put a design on the other side, like I could do that whole Harlequin on the other side, which would be very cool, or I can leave it plain. I've left plenty of them plain, or you know, I just want to give myself some options, and I don't want that leaking through. So I'm just taking some of the satin top coat here, and I'm just putting on a generous amount because it's going to like soak into the fabric. And I always like to do what I call an anchor line so that my decoupage goes down perfectly straight. So this is what my anchor line looks like. And then I'm going to lay that down, and there should be, oh goodness, let me smooth that out before the fan dries that out, and let me just see. Here's a piece of plastic. That's what I was looking for. Okay, so you don't really want to smooth it out using your fingertips because your fingertips have a lot of texture in them. That's why you can pick things up. And that texture will also grab hold of your tissue paper and tear it. So you want to firmly but gently just smooth that out. And then I'm going to pull this up and offload down here, and then work my way up to that line. And I prefer to use the Dixie Belle Satin Top Coat over Mod Podge because Mod Podge will crack and yellow over time. I know so many people still use Mod Podge, and it just amazes me. I do not know why. So this is what I'm doing here is figuring out what my background is going to be on this piece. And some things are going to overlap. And sometimes it will just speak to you and tell you what's going to look good. Once you get it down on here, it's just going to start talking to you. And you can do this on furniture too. I think collage is such a fun thing to do. And it's not anything I was ever really taught. I have some great mentors at Ground Floor Artist, where my studio is. There are some amazing, well, absolutely amazing artists there, but there are some really fantastic collage artists there. Okay, so I know, see, I should have just left this on here and then torn off what I wanted. Would have been a smarter thing to do, but I didn't. But that doesn't mean that I can't do that now. So I'm going to take my brush and just take off that piece right there. And I want more of this piece down here. So I'm just going to take this much of it. And even though these are two pieces, it's just not going to matter. And I like how that all works together. Okay, so now I'm going to put this. Okay, so I'm going to take that piece off and I'm going to put this piece on. And then get the other half of it. And so by tearing this in half and then deciding that I wanted the whole piece, I think that gives you a good idea of when you're doing a project like this, that if you change your mind halfway through, there's always a way to make it work. And don't think, especially when you're doing collage, don't think, oh my gosh, I made a terrible mistake. Now it's ruined, because that's just not the case. So I'm going to put down that side first. So you guys, we did a chair class last week. It was a big success, and I'm going to schedule another one. I want to give you all a chance to locate a chair. So if you're interested, just say so in the comments. I'll probably book it out about 2 months from now. So that everybody, because it can take a little, it's a little challenging to find the right chair. And I haven't posted the picture yet of the one that I did in the chair class, but oh my gosh, I absolutely love it. I haven't posted the picture because I want to post it when I post the dates for the class. But oh my gosh, it really, really, it's sitting in there in my family room, and I just look at it all day long going, oh my gosh, that turned out so pretty. Okay, I'm really, really, really liking how this is coming along here. So we aren't putting this piece down yet, but I just still want to get, you know, and I may rag my corners. In fact, I'm pretty sure, because I don't want just a big square on here, but I just want to see how this is coming along as we add bits and pieces on here. So I'm going to need some down here. So I think I'm going to go ahead and put some newspaper down here. So I'm just kind of like rubbing my finger along the bottom here, and it's kind of marking that for me so I know where that edge is, so I know where to cut it. Bring the camera back up a bit so you can see that mark I put on there. And then I'm going to go beneath that mark and cut off my paper. And just so you know, I have this straight edge here at the end of the bag where it folds in to the bottom, you know, gives you that nice flat bottom to it. My paper, I'm extending over that edge a little bit, and I will just fold it under that fold. Let's see, I think I'll go from the bottom up this time. And I'm sorry I can't see your comments or questions. It's really weird that it shows properly on my camera, but on my iPad it's showing only half of the picture. So I hope you guys are seeing the whole picture. I've never had that happen. I've had some strange things happen. Okay, so once again, I just have done the bottom edge, smooth it on. I reposted today, one of my retailers was decoupaging on a jean jacket. She was using one of my steampunk, I think it was the fox, the steampunk fox that she did. And I was so excited when I saw her doing that. I just wanted to share that with you guys. She's a great gal. And I love these brushes too. I got, this is an Artist Loft brush, and I think there's 4 in a package, and I got them at Michael's, and again, I got them with my coupon. And I've gone back and bought extras because I really like them, and these are great brushes to have on hand when I'm teaching classes. And they were inexpensive, but I like how they're a square shape. They really hold a lot of product. They're easy to wash up and clean up. And I do sell brushes, but when I come across a brush that I really like, I always like to share that with you. Just because I don't sell it doesn't mean it's not a great brush. Okay, so it's coming along. Let's see if we can like use that piece there. If somebody made this bag for me, I would just think I'd just been given the best gift. These bags are really fun with the steampunk animals on them too. I've had classes that I've taught where they've used the fox or the flamingo on them. And with my new release that's coming out probably next week, I did put all the steampunk animals on one sheet. So of course they're a smaller size, but if you want smaller ones for like projects like this, they're all on one sheet. Okay, so we'll get that trimmed up later. And I need another piece for over here on this corner. I think I'm going to take off this section there. I think that's super pretty. Isn't that pretty? Love that. I love vintage, period. And before we finish up here, I will pull the camera back up so I can see what your comments are and see if I can get them answered for you before we go off here. So don't think I'm ignoring you. I'm glad this isn't the first time I ever went live. Otherwise, I'd probably never do it again. Okay, and so I'm going back to her again because I just want to get a feel for where we're going. Let's see, this, I just want to see how far down this piece is going. So I can bring that piece up. And I kind of like that that ledger is there. So I'm going to, I'm not even going to cut, well, I am going to cut that piece. And so that tore off a little lower than what I needed it to. Have any of you guys done any collaging like this before? A few years ago, and I can't remember who it was, she did a whole large chest of drawers similar to this. And she did such a beautiful job. Oh my gosh, it was just so inspiring. I've lost my piece of plastic. Where did my plastic go? Flew down. Okay. One of the first collages I ever did, and I don't know if you guys have been around long enough to remember it, but I did a big 3-foot by 3-foot square bulletin board, and I used my Fox in a Suit decoupage tissue and then a bunch of scrap tissues that I had. And between now and tomorrow, I'm going to go back through all of my scraps and see if there's anything else on here that I want to add on here. Like on the board that I showed you, the plaque that I did, and it has the embellishments on it, and some of those gears and stuff, I had oxidized them, and that's why they turned that really cool turquoisey color. That's my own personal recipe for that, and I don't know yet. I'm still thinking about whether I want to share that. But I also pulled out some paint today. This is from Wise Owl. This is Joyful. And I put it up against those pieces, and it was like, that's a pretty good match. But when I do that oxidation, I do that on jewelry, when I'm making jewelry. And I think, you know, this piece is going to have, it's going to have more texture. We're only putting down the background. It's going to have more color. It's going to have more texture to it. It's not going to be one-dimensional. think this ledger is pretty on here. Okay, so something I just now noticed is that this bottom edge on here is a straight edge, and I really don't want a straight edge on here. So I'm going to pull some pieces out of it because it sticks out like a sore thumb. And I'm really glad I noticed it. And maybe you guys did too, since I can't see comments. I'm going to stop here in a minute and look at comments. This is driving me nuts. I really like this piece on here. And so let's see, I have another piece of ledger over here. Yeah, that works good. And so I don't do the same mistake down here. I'm going to, I don't want to cover up this pretty piece I just put down here. I can kind of see through there. See how we did with this piece. Oh, pretty good, have to say. Okay, so I'm going to weight that down, and I'm going to go in here and see if I can answer any questions or comments. Okay, so so I want to be sure that I leave this piece exposed down here because I really like it. And ideally, I should have put this piece down and then that piece on top, but you know, some things just work out differently. So the very first collage I ever did, I did on a canvas. I took a class from one of the artists at Ground Floor Artists, where my studio is. And we just did them on canvases, and we just picked out all our elements like what we're doing on this one and kind of laid them out on our canvas and figured out how we wanted them to layer and arrange. And I'm going about this a little bit differently. I'm kind of like laying my papers down, tearing them and laying them down. I could have done exactly what I said, laid them all down and then take a picture of it, but since I was using my phone for the live, I didn't think I could get a picture of it, so that's why I went ahead and I'm doing it piece by piece. But ideally, you would lay all your pieces out and get them layered, and that way you can move them around and organize them and adjust them. A little more efficiently than what I'm doing here. But I'm not unhappy with how this is turning out. It looks very old and vintage. I'm a person who appreciates and loves old and vintage. I like work on my ancestry a lot, and just recently came across some photographs and things of my dad and his parents and brothers. And some of those pictures were super old. And I uploaded all of them to Ancestry so that other family members researching can have access to them. But this kind of reminds me of that. It's just, there were shopping lists like this. People made lists. And newspaper cuttings, because I do have access to old newspapers and advertisements and stuff. It was very cool. Okay, so we've got the majority of our background done. And now she is our focal. And I'm going to fold that in. I'm going to take it off eventually, but just so I see the true edge. I'm going to bring her up a little bit because this is going to fold out. And like I said, I don't like this being all squared off like this. So I'm going to just pull some of these edges off. I really like this color on here, so I'm going to leave some of that color because I really like it. And I don't know if you can tell because I've got it upside down, but there is a, and I'll flip it around before we get off, but there is a lamp post on here. This is really cool. There's a carriage here and a bunch of men standing around here with their top hats on. They look very sophisticated. Okay, so I like how she is situated here. And I'm going to put her on. So I'm just going to hold back this paper. So I've got her situated. I don't want my paper to shift around. And remember, I have a couple of file folders and they are wrapped in plastic and they are inside of this canvas bag. So none of this moisture is going through to the other side. And, you know, I have books on how to do collage, but the books just kind of frustrate me because they're just telling, in my mind, there isn't a right or a wrong way. You just pull your elements together and then lay them out in a way that is pleasing to your eye. I was thinking about that today because one of my books on collage is right over here, and I was just like, I don't even know how a person even would begin to write a book on this is how you collage. Because in my mind, there isn't a right or a wrong way to do it. It's whatever elements you have on hand and how you put them together that's pleasing to your eye. It doesn't have to be pleasing to anyone else's. And I love that you can take all kinds of really cool things. Tomorrow, I'll show you some of the collages I've done. But like, I did one that kind of is a throwback to the 50s, and I used some, you know, like McCall's patterns or Simplicity patterns, you know, the tissues when you use a pattern. And they're transparent, but they have the lines and the cutting lines and the sewing lines and the attach lines and darts and all of those things. And my mother was a beautiful sewer. She could make clothes, she could reupholster furniture, she made drapes and curtains, she made all my dad's suits. Most of the time she wasn't using a pattern. She would just hold fabric up against you and mark and cut. And so one of those collages that I did is like, I had my mother in my head when I was doing it, and so I tried to use elements of things that made me think of my mom. And so I think you just need to take collections of things that are meaningful to you. You know, if you love birds or butterflies or dragonflies or fishing or, you know, whatever it is that speaks to you, then pull those elements together and incorporate them in your collage. And also, this has more wrinkles in it than my normal decoupage does. And that's okay. Embrace them. It just kind of adds to the vintage on here. If you're doing this on a canvas, then you have a little more control. We're just getting the base down. We still have lots of fun things to do with her. We got to jazz her all up. And see what a difference it makes that we went in and reshaped her and she doesn't have that square shape going on, or rectangle. She wasn't ever a square, but she was a rectangle. Oh, I think I love her. I'm going to flip her around so she's not upside down. I couldn't do this the other way, you guys. I had to see what I was doing. So I'm just going to tidy up any little spots that are lifting. Looks like I have a spot up here I need to add something really special to. Let's see. I'm going to take a piece of newspaper. I'm going to put that there. Okay, and then I was thinking about doing that. I'm going to have to flip it back around because I can't tell if I like it or if I don't like it. I don't like it. I like it being off balance, just the way it is. Okay, so I have all these little raggedy pieces that are hanging over, but I'm going to wait until they are perfectly dry before I I may sand them off with a sanding block. That's always the best way, but if they won't sand, then I'll use my X-Acto knife to get them off. But before we go, I'm going to just go on here and put another coat of satin top coat on here. That's the bottom. And when you do this, it's going to wrinkle up on you again. And that's okay. Don't freak out. I tell people all the time that this decoupage paper, all of decoupage paper, has elasticity in it. And it will stretch when you're rubbing it and when you wet it. But when it dries, it shrinks back down. And so don't get all hung up on, oh my gosh, I have wrinkles on here. And I'm pretty sure I am going to have wrinkles even when this shrinks back down. And if I'm bugged by it, I can take a hot iron that has no water in it and some parchment paper, and I can smooth out some of those wrinkles. But again, this is vintage, this is old, this is done on a canvas bag. You would expect to see some wear and tear and age on a project like this. I love working on pieces like this because eventually they start to talk to you. And she's starting to talk. She's starting to say, oh, you know, some Harlequin would be really pretty around the bottom down there, and maybe some Harlequin up here on these handles would be pretty. She's going to have some beads and jewelry on her, so we still have a lot to do with her. She's special. Okay, so we've got a nice top coat all over everything. I like to put my decoupage medium right in these little containers, and your relish containers, and then just pop a lid on it, and then it's still good tomorrow when I sit back down. So let me see what you guys have been chatting about. Well, hello, my friend Judith. Very happy to see you. I've been talking about ground floor artists a lot. Judith is one of the, she's an amazing artist at ground floor. She's famous. I mean, she's famous all over the world. Oh, Loretta, that's just the highest compliment anybody could pay me. Honestly, I do think she's super pretty. And did you get to see the one? And she's going to be even prettier because this was just an old board, and I sanded it up and cleaned it up and then added all kinds of fun elements to her. Like, this is all jewelry and stuff that I had just laying around in my stash. I put a copper heart on her and some more gears, and then gave her a name. We all voted on her name. But she was really, really fun to do. There's rhinestones on her. I don't know if you can see the sparkle. And we're gonna gussy up this girl too. She isn't gonna stay all wrinkled up. But I love you saying that, Loretta. Thank you so much. Yeah, Jerry, you're right. She is kind of Victorian pirate. She is mysterious. Do wrinkles and air pockets occur? Wrinkles, yes. You don't want air pockets. So that's why you see me going, you know, a couple of inches at a time, folding back, putting my medium down and smoothing it out. I see lots and lots of people, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that's not how I do it. I see lots and lots of people put their decoupage medium all over their whole piece. Then they take their picture and they hover over the top of it and carefully lay it down and hope they get it on straight. And then they start smoothing it out. Well, when you do it that way, you are going to get pockets of air trapped in there. And by doing it a section at a time like I do it, you're working all of that air out. And if this was a flat surface, there would be very few wrinkles. I'm just looking at the girl that I just showed you, and there really are no wrinkles on her. There is texture from the wood in the background. The texture of the wood is showing, but there's no wrinkles. There's gonna be wrinkles on her just because we're doing her on fabric like this, but she's gonna be really pretty, you guys. When she's all done, she's going to be beautiful. So you guys, that's it for today. We're gonna let her just sit here and dry, and then tomorrow we will start doing all the fun stuff in the embellishment and doing some stenciling on the back of her. And so join me tomorrow. I'll be back here tomorrow at the same time. So whatever part of the country you live in, whatever time you tuned in today, that's the exact same time I will be back here tomorrow. I'm here every single Tuesday and Wednesday at 4 p.m. And if you like this tissue, because I did show the whole tissue in the post, and I showed you guys before I took it all, deconstructed it and took it all apart. I mean, she's really pretty too. That tissue is available, and my website and my Etsy and Pinterest and all the places, all those links are up in the description. So I thank you so much for joining me today. I'm sorry it was so wacky and I couldn't see your comments in real time, but thank you for joining me. Thank you for hanging in there, and I hope to see you guys again tomorrow. Bye.